right, everyone. Well, I know we still have folks joining us, but we're 3 minutes past the hour, so I think it's time we go ahead and get started. Today, we are going to be joined by Rachel Stevens, Director of Programs for Red Rover. She's going to be discussing our 2026 funding opportunities through the Red Rover Safe Housing Grant, which offers up to $60,000 in funding to support the creation of pet housing programs at domestic violence shelters and homeless shelters. So, Rachel, without further ado, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Danielle. And did you want to say anything about this slide?
Oh, yeah. So, of course, today you are joining us via our Don't Forget the Pets project. This is a Don't Forget the Pets webinar that you registered for. So, if you would like more content from Don't Forget the Pets, please feel free to follow us on Facebook. We are also on Instagram as well, even though that is not on this slide. So, check us out, and you'll be the first one to hear about new webinars like this one.
Wonderful. Thank you, Danielle. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today to learn more about our safe housing grants. As Danielle shared, I'm Rachel Stevens, our Director of Programs here at Red Rover. And so I oversee our domestic violence programs and grants. As she shared, just a little housekeeping. We'll have time at the end to answer questions. We would love to hear your questions, your thoughts. So feel free to pop them in the chat, and we will either address them in the chat or at the end of the presentation. A little background first on Red Rover. We're a national nonprofit based in Sacramento, California, and we were founded in 1987. We started out as United Animal Nations and actually initially had an international focus on animal welfare. But over the years, our programs have evolved to focus in the US and Canada, as that's where we found we can have the greatest impact. Back in 2011, we rebranded as Red Rover and have been working hard ever since to expand our programs, bring animals from crisis to care, and strengthen the bond between people and animals. And we do that through our three main programs. Our Red Rover Readers program, we help children build empathy for animals and people alike to help prevent animal cruelty and neglect. And under this program is Kind News, which is an animal-themed children's magazine for classrooms and homes that inspires kids to be curious, helpful, and kind to people and animals. Our second program is Red Rover Responders, and that is our volunteer program. So we provide temporary emergency sheltering for animals in situations such as natural disasters or large-scale cruelty like puppy mills. And our volunteers over the years have responded to disasters such as Hurricane Katrina, the devastating Camp Fire, and of course, many others throughout the United States and Canada. Our volunteers have also helped to build some of the pet-friendly spaces at domestic violence shelters, who are the recipients of our safe housing grants. And most recently, we've expanded our volunteer program to also include more community program needs, such as vaccine clinics, spay-neuter clinics, and assisting with unchaining programs. And since 1987, we have deployed our staff and volunteers 300 times, and we currently have over 4,000 volunteers throughout the US and Canada. So that is really wonderful. And then our third program is our Red Rover Relief program, where we provide financial and emotional support for pet owners in need of emergency veterinary care, as well as, of course, assistance to help homeless individuals and domestic violence survivors find safety with their pets. And that is what we'll be discussing today. Red Rover offers multiple resources to help survivors of domestic violence. We have our Safe Escape grants and our Safe Housing grants, which help to cover the cost of keeping pets safe and able to find safety with their families. And then, of course, you know about don'tforgetthepets.org, which is our collaboration with Greater Good Charities, which offers free guidance, free expertise, one-on-one coaching, and resources to organizations who are looking to make those pet programs. Now, this is a little bit of background on why Red Rover has become so passionate about offering assistance to DV survivors and their pets. Up to 71% of pet owning women entering shelter have reported animal abuse. And between about 20 to 48% of survivors report delaying leaving for fear of leaving their pet with their abuser. And about 25% of survivors have actually reported returning to their abuser out of concern for their pet. And since we know that up to 70% of domestic violence survivors report having a pet, and as we can see from these numbers, a majority of homes where pets are present saw these pets being abused. So we've seen survivors report having lived in their cars with their pets rather than leave them behind with their abusers. Heartbreakingly, these numbers also show that when children witness abuse, they are more likely to abuse. So, being able to help parents and the greater community model this caring behavior for pets seems especially crucial in these situations. Red Rover launched our Safe Escape grants back in 2007, and these grants provide funding to board pets while a client is staying at a domestic violence shelter that does not accept pets. So it took a few years for the word to spread across the country that we were offering this assistance to board pets. But now outreach and word of mouth have done an amazing job, and applications have been steadily coming in. In fact, due to an overwhelming number of applications in this program, we've had to modify it a bit, and the maximum length of boarding is now currently 45 days. After doing this work for a while, we came to realize that while the Safe Escape grants are obviously extremely needed and very useful, they were not addressing the underlying issue of making it safe and easy for survivors to find safety with their pets. And that is when we decided we need to help domestic violence shelters create their own pet housing programs. So enter our safe housing grants, which is the reason we are all here today. These grants, as I shared, were started because we saw the need for our Safe Escape grants were steadily increasing. But being the only national resource of that kind, we could see that the program would become overwhelming and unsustainable without some help from the domestic violence shelters themselves. So in 2012, we offered our first safe housing grants, and they were pretty small. They were only up to $2,000. So these were mostly geared towards helping domestic violence shelters purchase some crates, other supplies, pet supplies to quickly and easily make, small safe spaces for pets in their shelter. In 2014, we increased our grants to up to $6,000. And we started to see more domestic violence shelters doing things like building outdoor kennel spaces, or adding tile and linoleum to their rooms to make them pet friendly and easy to clean. Along with having crates, of course, for small animals or overnight temporary care. Then in 2016, we first collaborated with Red Rover and Greater Good Charities Rescue Rebuild program to go ourselves with Rescue Rebuild and make the domestic violence shelter pet friendly. So Rescue Rebuild brought the expertise and the know-how, and we provided many of the volunteers to help get the work done quickly. And this collaboration with Greater Good Charities really helped us to see the growth potential for the safe housing program. Then in 2017, a very generous donor made it possible for us to increase the grant amount up to $20,000. And that really expanded the kind of projects that the grant could help with. The number of room renovations increased. We started seeing plans for both indoor and outdoor kennel buildings instead of mainly covered chain link structures we'd helped with previously. And we also saw a lot of projects to help elevate the standard of care for pets. So, along with pet friendly rooms, shelters were adding fenced in play areas or cattery rooms for cats to get out and play. And these more ambitious projects allowed us to collaborate more with Rescue Rebuild and also get our volunteers out for more deployment opportunities. So then in 2019, we were very fortunate to start a partnership with Purina, which perhaps some of you know as the Purple Leash Project. And this partnership has afforded us the opportunity to not only continue to grow our safe housing grants, but greatly expand the reach of our message. Because of the Purple Leash Project, more people across the country are now aware of the connection between pets and domestic violence. They're aware of the lack of pet friendly spaces at domestic violence shelters and now aware of the importance of helping survivors and their pets escape abuse together. That increased awareness brought increased interest in our grant from animal organizations, actually, wanting to see what they could do to help. So we started to see that limiting our grants to only domestic violence shelters was actually limiting the amount of help that was available to domestic violence survivors and their pets. Some domestic violence shelters simply aren't able to offer a pet program for a variety of reasons. And so having another organization in the community set up to offer safe and confidential pet care seemed like a great alternative in these situations. And the animal organizations were very interested in helping. So in 2020, we decided to open up our safe housing grants to animal orgs, and the response has been incredible. Since we started offering them, about a third of the grants we've given have been awarded to animal organizations. And one of the best things that we love about animal orgs offering this assistance for DV pets is that they can offer help to the whole community instead of only helping survivors that come into one shelter. So, as you've seen, and thank you for going on this journey with me, our safe housing grants have changed quite a bit since they were first offered in 2012. Now, our grants are up to $60,000, and we have three application deadlines per year: March 1st, June 1st, and September 1st. And we've really tried to design these grants with flexibility in mind so that each pet program is designed to best meet the needs of that community. This quote says, "Do not be tempted to view this project as just something else on your to-do list. It is important and may make all the difference in a victim's decision to leave or stay." This testimonial from a safe housing grant recipient illustrates the importance of creating a pet program. These programs truly eliminate barriers to safety. They keep people and their pets safe from abuse, and they facilitate healing. We've heard from many safe housing grant recipients heartbreaking stories of clients who were in shelter with their pets who do not believe they would be alive today if the shelter had not accepted them with their pets. They simply would not have left the dangerous situation they were in, and they credit the pet housing programs with saving their lives. And now let's dive a bit deeper into our safe housing grants. On our website, if you go to redrover.org/safe housing, you will find this pre-application checklist. In addition to helping people and pets find safety together, these grants are truly meant to help you build collaborative relationships within your community. Domestic violence and animal organizations will be expected to work together to identify the needs for your services in your community and find the best ways to fill them. If veterinary services can't be provided by the animal organization, you'll need a partnership with one or more vet clinics in your area. We also recommend reaching out to your community. Reach out to your local Girl Scouts, local pet supply stores, places of worship to see because sometimes they're able to fulfill program needs through community service or donations. So, in this checklist, we require you to be ready to start your pet program within 12 months or less of applying. You must have a detailed program plan and budget, along with an MOU with a partner organization. And what that means is a domestic violence organization applying for the grant must form a partnership with an animal organization. And if you're an animal organization applying, you must form a partnership with a DV organization. As I mentioned, you will need to identify a veterinary partner if that can't be provided by your animal org partner. You'll, of course, need to ensure that the program meets all relevant animal ordinances and laws and verify your ability to obtain permits and any authorizations needed. We also do require that if you're doing renovations, you've already spoken with a contractor if needed, and you already have those detailed estimates or quotes for your renovation because you will want to attach those to your application. A couple notes on what we cannot help with. We cannot help with salaries, advertising, training, real estate purchases, rent, utilities, things like that. Our grants are not meant to sustain existing pet programs. So if you already have an existing pet program, you are welcome to apply only if you are expanding your capacity for pets. There are a few required documents, as I mentioned, that you'll need to attach to your application. So these are your project budget. We do have a Red Rover budget template that you'll use. Your project timeline, an IRS letter of determination, your MOU with your partner org, which is signed by both parties, a veterinary estimate if you're asking for vet care funds, and any quotes or estimates supporting your budget asks, such as those renovation quotes that I mentioned. And now let's go over a couple example documents of an MOU and a sample budget. So here is a fantastic MOU that I'll go into the details on the next slide between a DV shelter and an animal organization. And this DV shelter was kind enough to allow us to use it as an example. So let's check it out. The great thing about this MOU is it clearly details each organization's duties and responsibilities. It specifies what services will be provided at no charge and what may require funding. So, in this case, the animal organization is agreeing to house pets that the DV shelter can't house on site. And it clearly outlines the care that will be provided at no cost. It also says that any veterinary care or vaccines may require funding or reimbursement. It specifies if the survivor can visit their pet and outlines what documentation and forms would be needed for that. So, in this case, a consent and release form would be needed. It also addresses confidentiality concerns and, of course, signed by both organizations. So, for more sample documents like this MOU, intake forms, consent and release forms, all the forms you could ever need, I highly encourage you to check out Don't Forget the Pets.org resource library, and we'll be sure to share that link with you in the chat. And now let's look at a sample pet program budget. It may sound silly, but one of the main things to double check is that your math adds up and that the total amount requested in your budget is the same amount you request in your application. So in this example budget, you can see that it's clear what each cost is for, and it also details the cost per pet when appropriate. So for example, the vaccines are $100 per pet, and they anticipate housing 10 pets. It also clearly shows which items are already covered with other funding versus what funding is needed. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we will ask you to supply quotes and estimates to support this budget ask. So you're welcome to attach those to your initial application. Some items that we typically see requested are renovation costs, veterinary care costs, pet supply costs, food, pet food, and even things like pet deposits. And again, what not to include in your budget, a couple, things that we cannot help with: salaries, advertising, training, real estate purchases, rent, utilities, and then existing program costs. So again, our grants are not meant to sustain existing programs. If you have an existing pet program, please apply only if you are expanding your capacity for pets. And all of these things that I am reading and are listing, these are all also listed on our website. While reviewing applications, we are really looking for shelters to demonstrate the need in their community. So we're looking for how you determined your estimated number of pets that you will serve. Have you done a survey? Have you tracked calls to your hotline that mention pets? Are you tracking the number of people and pets that you've had to turn away due to lack of a pet program? Be sure to tell us those things in your application. And then for the animal orgs out there listening, if you're an animal organization that is going to house pets from other crisis situations in addition to DV in your temporary care pet program, just make sure you're focusing on the DV portion of your pet program in this application. We are absolutely thrilled that you would be able to help pets and people in other crisis situations. I think that's one of the best parts of animal orgs getting involved. But make sure for this application, you're outlining what percentage of your numbers and your budget will be those DV pets specifically. Now, in case there are any homeless shelters out there listening, one very exciting development is the addition of our Safe Housing Homeless Shelter grants. We have discussed for years that we would love to be able to expand our assistance to create pet spaces at homeless shelters, but the funding simply was not there for us to be able to expand. But finally, in 2024, we received some funding and launched a pilot program. And then we were able to provide those grants in 2025 as well. And now I'm happy to say here in 2026, it is no longer a pilot program. This is a full-fledged program for us, and we are able to offer grants to homeless shelters in 2026. The goal of this program is to help homeless shelters build a pet program to house pets on site at the shelter. There can be foster or boarding components to the overall program, but really the goal is to keep people and their pets together in the shelter. And this mainly comes from our understanding that for many homeless individuals, their pet is their main source of companionship, comfort, safety, love. And in our experience, we've just seen that people would rather be back on the street than separated from their pet. So they'll be less likely to take advantage of a program where they can't stay together. This year, we are able to offer about 5 grants of $60,000. The deadline for those applications is going to be March 1st, so at our first deadline of the year. And if we still have funding available after the March 1st deadline, we will then accept homeless shelter grant applications at the June 1st deadline. Now, I want to make sure there's no confusion because we do know there is a lot of crossover between domestic violence survivors and homelessness. But these grants are completely separate from our domestic violence grants, and therefore you do not need to focus on domestic violence pets or domestic violence survivors. These grants, as I shared, must create on-site housing for pets at the homeless shelter. Now, if you're a homeless shelter that is already pet friendly, but you're looking to expand your program, similar to our domestic violence grants, that you do need to be expanding your program, but you're welcome to apply. Our priority funding for homeless shelter grants will be creating new pet housing programs, but we will consider expansions if we still have some funding available. So you are welcome to apply. The general guidelines for this program are the same as our other safe housing guidelines. So that pre-application checklist that I went over, it's going to be the exact same thing. That also includes that homeless shelters must have a partnership with an animal organization before applying. And again, this is all listed on our website, and you can find our guidelines and application for our homeless shelter grants on our website. And we do have two separate web pages, one for our domestic violence safe housing grants and one for our homeless shelter grants. And here's a little reminder of why we are all here today and the amazing work you are all doing. This is a quote from one of our safe housing grant recipients. The pets. The people heal the pets and the pets heal the people. It is worth any extra work on the end of the shelter. I also wanted to share a bit about our safe housing grants impact over the years. We have provided more than $6.5 million to domestic violence and animal organizations throughout the years. We help nearly 10,000 pets annually through these programs, over 6,500 survivors annually, and we have in total provided more than 1.3 million nights of safety for pets since 2012. And I also wanted to share a few resources that we do have available on our website. We have posters mainly geared towards survivor outreach. So these can be hung in any public places such as veterinary offices, doctors' offices, public restrooms. These posters talk about the signs of abuse. They help survivors find pet-friendly DV shelters near them. And then also, of course, gives the National Domestic Violence Hotline information. And all of these resources are available for download or request at redrover.org/dvhelp. All right. Well, if you'd like to reach out to learn more about these programs and resources, please don't hesitate to contact us. I've included my email, rachel@redrover.org, as well as our relief grants email, grant@redrover.org. And I just want to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to attend this webinar. I really hope it provided a little more insight into our safe housing grant application process. And I truly, truly hope to see every single one of you in our submitted application at our deadlines this year. So I'm gonna kick it back to before we get to questions. I'm sure there's lots of questions. I'm gonna Danielle's nodding her head. Oh boy. Um, we're happy to answer all those questions. Luckily, we have tons of time for questions. I'm gonna kick it back over to Danielle.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much, Rachel. We were so grateful to have you here today because, as this slide says, it really does take a community. It really does take all of us working together to provide these services and create safety opportunities for both people and their pets. So, thank you all who joined us today. Before we hop into the Q&A session, I just wanted to give a brief shout out to some upcoming presentations that we have. So if you are interested in joining us for a full day workshop and you live in one of the following areas, we would love to see you. These workshops do happen in person. So we have one coming up on February 12th in Sylva, North Carolina. That will be from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And then we have another workshop coming up in Red Rover's hometown of Sacramento, California
Woohoo!
March 18th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you live in either of those areas, we would love to see you. We also have another webinar, a guest presentation webinar coming up on March 26th. This will be Protecting All Victims, How the Law Addresses Animal Abuse, Family Safety, and Professional Reporting. And we will be joined for that webinar by the Animal Legal Defense Fund. So if you'd like to check out any of these upcoming events, please visit don'tforgetthepets.org/events. All right. So, yes, we do have a lot of questions that came through the chat. Thank you so much to everyone. Oh, I see Rebecca Stevens in the chat who says, woo woo, that's us. Rebecca is actually our co-host for our Silva workshop, which is coming up very, very soon. So, we're really excited to see you in Silva, Rebecca. But we do have a lot of questions that came through the chat. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted a question. And please feel free to continue submitting those questions. We will get through as many as we possibly can. But like Rachel said, we have quite a bit of time remaining. So I'm going to get us started by reading some of the questions that were pre-submitted, and then we will have an opportunity for folks to unmute if you would prefer to ask your question live. But we have a great first question from Rosalie. Rosalie asks, can a domestic violence shelter partner with a for-profit veterinary office to both meet the animal organization partnership requirement and the veterinary services requirement?
That is a great question. So ideally, we would prefer if you could partner with a nonprofit animal organization in your community, such as your local animal shelter or humane society. That would be ideal. If for some reason you don't have an animal shelter in your community and there are no options for that, then yes, you would be able to do that. We have seen that in the past. It is not, as I shared, it's not our, we would prefer you to try to partner with a nonprofit animal org in your area. If not, you can go that route. Please let us know that in your application and kind of the reasons why.
Perfect. Thanks, Rachel. Follow-up question from Rosalie. Does the domestic violence organization have to be solely domestic violence? She says, our organization is focused on homelessness and housing, and our programs include a domestic violence shelter and a non-residential domestic violence program, as well as other programs.
Nice. Okay. Um, I would have to learn more about your organization to see which grant your organization fits best. Um, so perhaps we can connect more to determine which application makes the most sense for you. What I will say is if you submit one and we review it and we're like, this actually fits better with our homeless shelter grants, we can shift you to that. So it's not the end of the world if for some reason you submit the wrong application. But if you could, let's connect so we can maybe direct you towards which one makes the most sense for you. It sounds like you do both, so which is wonderful.
It is wonderful. Great question, Rosalie. Thank you. Um, Pretty short, straightforward question from Jill. Jill is wondering if the sample MOU that you shared, Rachel, would be available for folks who are applying to look at. Is that available anywhere on the website, or could we share it out?
We can absolutely shoot her. I'll double check to see if it is actually one of the ones listed on the Don't Forget the Pets resource library because I think it is. But if it's not, we can share it out.
Excellent. Thank you. And yeah, just to follow up on that, Jill, we do have a variety of sample MOUs as well as other sample documents in that Don't Forget the Pets document library. So if the specific MOU that Rachel shared here is not already in there, we'll make sure to get it added there. Let's see. And Zachary is in the chat and would also like to echo the desire to see that MOU. So we'll make sure it's available. Um, let's see. Question from Jennifer. Jennifer asks, we are in the process of expanding our shelter, which would include expanding the possible number of pets. If we were to apply for vet assistance funds like vaccinations and supplies like food, puppy pads, and we received the grant, would we be able to apply in the future? Would we be eligible for grant funds in future years?
You are always eligible in the future if you are expanding. So each time you apply, you would need to be expanding.
Perfect. Thank you, Rachel. And yes, in answer to your question, Patricia, which was, can we receive a copy of the PowerPoint slides? Absolutely. We will be sending a copy of Rachel's beautiful slide deck as well as the link to the recording of today's presentation in a follow-up email to everyone later this week. Question from Rosalie, can indirect slash admin costs be included in the budget?
Generally, no. We admin costs generally we cannot help with.
Thank you, Rachel. This is an interesting question from Christine, and I can definitely weigh in, but I would love to hear Rachel's feedback first. But Christine asks, I am curious if you know if there is more of a need for dogs versus cats.
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. Danielle, if you have thoughts on it, I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, so my answer, Christine, would be that it really depends on your kind of geographic area and the specific population of the community that you serve. But for the most part, I would say that the majority of domestic violence shelters and certainly the majority of homeless services agencies that we work with see a greater need for dog housing than cat housing. Again, this is not true everywhere and not true with all populations. So it's certainly worth doing a little bit of surveying and data gathering on the population of people that you serve. But generally speaking, there tends to be more of a need for folks to find housing for their dogs than cats. The good part though is that if you do focus on dogs as part of your sort of renovation or your program, cats tend to be much easier to house for a lot of folks. They tend to do very well in, say, an in-room housing model. We can set up, tiered kennels for them next to a client's bed, for example. So if you'd like to talk further about how to house dogs versus how to house cats, our Don't Forget the Pets project is a great place for you. We've got lots of knowledge articles, and I would always be happy to hop on a Zoom call with you to talk about what that might look like at your shelter.
Love that, Danielle. And yeah, I was going to reiterate that sounds like a great opportunity to do a survey or track in those calls to your shelter to get, further data for your specific community.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Question from Jennifer. My organization has both a homeless shelter as well as a domestic violence program. That's great. Uh,
Wonderful.
Jennifer would like to know if they are eligible to apply for both grants.
We would, so you would apply for, no, you would apply for one of them. And well, I guess, yeah, I do have questions. So maybe we connect. Because if you do have two separate shelters, housing, yeah, we can perhaps see if one grant would be able to cover both shelters. So again, I think we would need to connect about these that are kind of overlapping so we can see which application makes most sense for your shelter.
Perfect. Thanks, Rachel. Question from Alondra, and I'm going to paraphrase just a little bit. But Alondra asks, just to confirm that I understand correctly, is this opportunity for domestic violence agencies, is this opportunity available to domestic violence agencies that don't have an existing shelter? She says, unfortunately, we do not have a homeless shelter or a DV shelter in my area, but we do provide safe homes and outsource other funding when needed for extended stays. Would we qualify if we don't have a shelter?
That's a great question. So, if you don't have a domestic violence shelter in your area, but you are a domestic violence organization providing housing in some way, and perhaps are thinking about a unique program, maybe boarding pets offsite or creating a foster program, you would be able to apply. We would need to maybe talk about your program ahead of applying, just so that we know. I know some of these questions are complicated, and I'm like, yes, no. But we really want to connect with you and make sure you're creating the best program for your community needs. So if you are actively helping house domestic violence survivors in some way, you don't have an on-site shelter. That is a unique situation for us, I'll be honest. But I don't think that is a reason that we wouldn't be able to help if you were housing survivors in some way and wanted to create a pet housing program for those survivors with pets. I'd be curious, to learn about your program more and what you're currently doing for pets, if anything, and if you're hearing about people coming with pets.
Perfect. Thanks, Rachel. Question from E, and I believe Laurel did answer this in the chat, but it's nice to read it aloud for folks who are viewing the recording later. But E asked, is there a recipient maximum, I think a funding maximum for safe housing grants?
Yes, so each grant is up to $60,000.
Thank you, Rachel. Question from Kim. Kim, it's nice to see you here today. Kim is actually one of the participants in our Don't Forget the Pets coaching program, and they have
Yay. Thank
exciting.
you. Hi.
Kim, good to see you. They have an exciting project coming up that Kim has been working on for quite some time. So we're really excited to have you here, Kim. But Kim is wondering, Rachel, I know you mentioned sort of a rough number of grants available for homeless shelters in 2026. Kim is wondering how many grants are expected to be available for domestic violence agencies in 2026, and then specifically for the March deadline. Do you have an idea?
Yeah, we don't have as limited fund. So we have more funds available for our domestic violence and animal org grants. So we generally provide around 30 grants per year in that program. And so we're not limited per deadline necessarily for those grants. So you're welcome to apply, at any deadline. But for our homeless shelter grants, we have more limited funding available. So we will be only able to provide up to 5 grants for homeless shelters, up to $60,000 for those funds. But yeah, we generally provide about 30 per year in our domestic violence and animal org grants.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Kim, and thank you, Rachel. Let's see. I'm just going to read a quick comment from Jill. Jill says, homeless services is what we do, and pets are definitely not well supported in our county. We are also considering a capital campaign for homeless hospice, where animal support will be an absolute support. Thank you for seeing this population having a critical need also. Thank you, Jill, for sharing that. And yes, we're very excited by that program. Please let us know how we can help.
Yeah. Thank you, Jill.
Let's see. Question from Lilia. Lilia is asking, can the budget request be multi-year, totaling $60,000? Also, can you expand on reporting and sustainability requirements for grantees?
Yes, absolutely. So the budget can cover up to 2 years. So that's a great question. So you are able to include up to 2 years, up to $60,000 in your request. And then reporting, yes, thank you for asking about this. And I want to make a note to include this in the next presentation because I realized I did leave out the reporting. Um, it is honestly pretty simple. We will send you the report for you to fill in annually, and you are required to submit that report for 2 years. Things like number of pets you've served, number of families associated with those pets, um, challenges you've had to overcome, number of nights that pets stayed with their people in your program, things like that. Those are generally questions that we are asking in the report. And again, we will remind you annually to fill out that report. We will send you a direct link to the report, and you'll be required to report for 2 years. So it actually is a pretty simple reporting process.
Excellent. Thanks, Rachel.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Okay, great. Great question from Kristen. Kristen says, I operate a 501c3 dog rescue. Can I apply for a Purple Leash Project grant if I collaborate with a domestic violence shelter locally?
Yes, so as an animal organization, you are more than welcome to partner with a DV org and create a pet program for DV pets. So I don't know if that maybe means housing them at if you have an actual location of your rescue, housing them there, or creating a foster program. I'm not sure what that would look like for you, but it sounds like you would be definitely eligible to apply for our safe housing grants. I will say, so the Purple Leash Project is a segment of our safe housing grants. Not every safe housing grant is a Purple Leash Project grant, but it's a segment of our grant. So it wouldn't necessarily be a Purple Leash Project grant, but it could be a RedRover Safe Housing grant, if that makes sense. Our the Purple Leash Project, just so everyone is aware, has been really focused on creating on-site pet programs at domestic violence shelters. So every Purple Leash Project grant up until now is on-site at a domestic violence shelter. So that's the reason that I'm saying it may not necessarily be a Purple Leash Project grant, but please definitely apply if you are partnering and creating a DV program for pets.
Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. Interesting question from Shannon that we may ask you to provide some additional information, but Shannon asks, can this grant cover pet fees for rentals? So my follow-up question for you, Shannon, if you're still on the call and would like to unmute, when you say for rentals, do you mean, say, like a rental apartment as a client is maybe transitioning out of shelter into rental housing?
Yeah, exactly. So folks who are currently in program housing and are going to be transitioning into more independent housing like local rentals. That's exactly what I mean.
Yes, Shannon. So those are we call them pet deposits, and you are welcome to submit those in your app in your budget.
Excellent. Thank you. Great question. Great question, Shannon. Let's see. Question from Matt. When will the application page for homeless shelter applicants go live? I just tried to start an application, but the message on the website says the offering is currently closed.
Oh, it is live, Matt. So we will double check on that. I think someone should be able to pop the direct link to the homeless shelter page in the chat, and we will double check to make sure the application is open.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. Matt, just so you know, that web page was just updated this last week.
Yes.
So Rachel and I will take a look at that and make sure that everything is functioning correctly. But I do apologize if maybe you hit a bad.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll make sure that that is updated for you.
Question from Diane, who asks, can an organization apply for both grants? So we sort of answered this earlier, but I'm going to let you just clarify again, Rachel.
Yeah, so no, you would be applying for one or the other.
Perfect. Let's see. Jenna says, I am the shelter director at a DV agency and would be looking to build a pet housing space adjacent to our facility. Do I still need an MOU with the Humane Society in our area, or would it just be a partnership with a veterinary office for emergencies/vaccines?
You would still need a partner, an MOU with an animal organization in order to apply. Yes, you would need both. If the animal org cannot provide vet clinic, vet care, then you would identify your vet clinic partner, which it sounds like you have. But yes, you would need an MOU with an animal organization in order to apply.
Yeah, and Jenna, I can speak a little bit more to why that partnership with an animal welfare agency is so valuable. There are a lot of different ways that that kind of partnership can manifest, and different ways that that animal shelter partner can support you. But some examples include things like backup housing. So, for example, even if you are planning to do on-site housing, at sort of an adjacent facility, a pet kennel or pet retreat model. If those kennels fill up and you no longer have space, really can be very valuable to have an animal shelter partner that's able to provide offsite housing and foster care, even if it's just temporarily for a few weeks until a space opens up. That can be a very valuable piece of that partnership. If you have a pet or a client with a pet that's looking to enter shelter, that behaviorally maybe is not a good fit for a domestic violence shelter environment, that would, do better in a more controlled environment with animal welfare professionals, or again in foster care with an experienced foster provider. That could be a great benefit that an animal shelter can provide. Oftentimes, animal shelters are also a great resource for things like pet food, pet supplies, cat litter boxes, toys, bowls. Especially larger animal shelters tend to get a lot of donations and sometimes don't have space to store all of those donations. So they're happy to pass those items along to folks that need them. We've also heard of animal shelters providing a lot of training and behavioral support for pets that are living in domestic violence or homeless shelters. They can provide things like staff training on animal safety and handling. They can even provide sometimes free workshops or training seminars for pet owners that are living in shelter. And sometimes animal shelters will even have free behavioral helplines or advice lines. So if you do have a pet living in shelter that is displaying some problem behaviors or concerning behaviors, having that relationship with an animal shelter where you can hop on the phone and say, hey, we have this dog in shelter. We really want him to be able to stay, but he is barking and howling all through the night. What can we do? Again, another really, really valuable role that an animal shelter can play. So mostly we just want to make sure that you have that support in your community, someone that you can reach out to be that animal expert when you need help to make sure that your program is sustainable long term. I know that was a very long answer to that question, but it was a great question. Let's see. Question from Jill. This is a good one. Do you have any policy to ensure that marginalized communities slash clients have access to this funding? We would like to support your work and would be happy to post anything you'd like us to on our website, but this is an important element for us. You can visit us at ifsn.org. Looks like that is Individual and Family Support Network.
That's wonderful. Yes, that's partly why we offer so much space in our application for shelters to communicate the needs in their communities. We're really looking to see what your community looks like, what needs are there, what resources are available to you, and we actively look to help in under-resourced areas, and we definitely want to hear from shelters what is going on in their communities.
Yeah, great question and great resource, Jill. I am not familiar with your organization, but I will check it out definitely today.
Yeah.
Love to learn more. Let's see, lots of questions coming in. This is a great group, guys. Excellent.
I love it.
Let's see. I think this is more of a comment because we kind of talked about the sort of overlap between homeless services and domestic violence. But Seth is just reiterating the homeless versus DV distinction is relevant to my organization as well. We have DV shelters with new slash recently established pet programs that could be expanded, but we also have homeless shelters distinct from domestic violence that do not currently serve pets but could start. So it sounds like very distinct and separate shelter locations, Rachel, that are kind of at different stages of pet housing. Any additional thoughts you want to add?
Just to reiterate, because I think there was confusion when we launched our pilot safe housing grants, that it's completely separate from our DV grants. So it does not need to be focused on DV pets or DV survivors in your homeless shelter. And then, of course, at your DV shelter, it would be. So just want to reiterate that separation.
Yeah. And again, we're really happy to work with you, Seth, and kind of learn more about your different shelter spaces and what you'd like to do at each of them. Again, don't forget the pets is a great resource. If either of these projects, either your DV shelter or your homeless shelter locations, you're ready to really start looking to see how you can incorporate pets or expand to accept more pets at either of these locations. Or don't forget the pets coaching program might be a great fit for you, where we can actually sit down on a Zoom call, kind of one-on-one with our team members, and kind of talk to you about what might be a good fit and how the program and your location might look in order to serve pets most effectively, and which grant opportunity would be appropriate for you. So definitely lots of opportunities to talk more. I know in settings like this, it can be hard to get very specific answers to your questions, but we are always available for one-on-one Zoom calls to help kind of get at that nitty-gritty. All right. Let's see. Good question from Gretchen. Just to reiterate, so Gretchen asks, you may have covered this already, but does this grant cover staff time to implement the project?
Great question, and it does not for either grant.
That's right. And that list of items that is not covered by this grant funding, everyone will be on that grant webpage. So you can revisit that again and double check before you add anything to your budget. Okay, interesting question from Christine. For the domestic violence shelter grant, can the grant funds be used to support security systems and security protocols to help protect the domestic violence survivors and their pets? Do you have any recommendations on your document library for security systems and such?
Great question. Yes, you can include that in your safe housing grant budget, and I'll let Danielle speak to the resource library.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Christine. We don't currently have any documents in there specifically related to security systems or security. Most DV shelters that we work with kind of already are set up to protect the clients living in those shelter spaces. And so often it's not a lot of additional or added security to also make sure that pets are safe in those shelter locations. If you are doing something like an external kennel, so it's like a kennel building that's on your property, but it's just not in the same building where your clients are housed, of course, you may need to add things like additional security cameras that actually view that kennel building. Things like privacy fencing around areas where pets are housed so that someone who is maybe driving by or walking by isn't able to see what pets are being housed at your shelter. We do have, and I apologize, I cannot remember the name off the top of my head, but we do, I know, have a recommendation. If you are doing indoor outdoor dog kennels, we do have a recommendation for a great dog door that is very secure and locking so that if your shelter ever does go into, say, lockdown, you can securely lock dogs in the interior of their kennel building so that they are safe. But yeah, we can certainly chat about this more. Another great resource for you might be Greater Good Charities Rescue Rebuild, which Rachel mentioned earlier. They do a lot of renovation projects at domestic violence shelters. And so they may have some recommendations for security items that I don't know about. But that's a great and really interesting question. Question from Rosalie. To clarify, can we apply for up to $60,000 total for up to 2 years? Or did you mean that we could apply for up to $60,000 per year for up to 2 years?
Great question. It is a total of $60,000, which would cover 2 years.
Perfect. Okay. Question from Camry. Can both the Domestic Violence Safe House and the nonprofit animal program partnership apply for the grant separately as they build a partnership, or should that be under one grant request?
That should be under one grant request. Um, yeah, that would be one grant.
Perfect. Um, I'm seeing many, many thank yous. We are 5 minutes past, so thank you so much to everyone who stayed on with us. I do want to give an opportunity for anyone who wanted to ask a question live. So if you would like to unmute and ask Rachel anything, please feel free to do so now. Meanwhile, I will scroll through kind of the remaining questions just to make sure that we checked everything off.
And we're happy to continue answering questions in our email, grant@redrover.org. You can email me directly, rachel@redrover.org. I know it's hard to get to all of the questions in these presentations, so you're welcome to reach out to us anytime before you submit an application.
Perfect. And we got an update from Matt. It looks like the application, I think, for the homeless shelter grant is working now.
Yay! Okay. Shout out to my coworker Laurel who checked on it when you said that, Matt. So thank you, Laurel, for updating that. And thank you, Matt, for bringing that to our attention.
Mhm. Wonderful. Well, we're getting many, many notes of thanks in the chat, Rachel.
Oh.
It sounds like this was a very helpful info session for folks. So we really hope that we see lots of applications from you all this round.
Yes, and thank you so much again for taking time out of your day to listen and learn about our safe housing grants. And again, we would love to see your applications. Danielle would love to see you in coaching for don't forget the pets. So, lots of resources available to you, and we're always here to answer questions. So again, reach out if you ever need anything.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat that I missed. Um, and it sounds like we don't have anyone that would like to unmute to ask a question live. So I
Hey,
think we'll.
actually, I would. This is Matt, the guy that was struggling with the application.
Hey,
Uh,
Matt.
I think it's a quick question, and I think I probably know your answer, but I got to ask it anyway. We have just opened a brand new non-congregate homeless shelter where we are accepting pets with their owners into it for the very first time. Like we just opened 3 days ago. And so with the grant application being March 1st, um, I already have the plans in place to get my dog enclosure constructed. Can I retroact expenses that are prior to the grant period, or am I out of luck that whatever money I'm spending now is just spent?
Oh, Matt.
I expect you to say
We
can't
don't
retroact.
we don't retroact. I'm so sorry. If you have ideas for expanding your brand new program, we would love to hear them because I would love to support you in this process. I'm so happy you're thrilled you're accepting pets. So maybe brainstorm what else can be added to your program.
Yeah, we're still solidifying our partnership. We have a dog rescue and the Humane Society that are our animal care partners, and so we still have some beefing up of those relationships. There might be some things that would be May, June kind of timing for us from an expense standpoint. So
Okay.
I'll shift gears to thinking about that rather than the capital costs on putting the dog infrastructure in place. So thank
Sounds
you.
good. Thanks, Matt.
And I see we have a question from Jennifer. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, I'm the one who mentioned earlier about expanding our shelter. We are literally in the process of building a new building. We're waiting for to the weather to basically to break before construction will start. What we are almost more than doubling our capacity, and there's no way to expand our current building without blowing out all the circuits. Uh, so what, if anything, on that would I be able to maybe apply towards working this? Because we are pet friendly. We do take dogs, cats. We've even had ferrets, turtles, fish, and a horse at one point. Do not ask me, but the horse only stayed long enough to get bored someplace. Um, what like what could possibly be like? I know somebody brought up the whole security system, like because we are going to we're doing everything basically ground up, literally on this because our building's a old doctor's office from the 40s that has been retrofitted a few times. It cannot take it anymore.
Yeah, so you're expanding your capacity, you said, for people and pets as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that expansion is what you're able to apply for.
Mm. Well,
So
I mean, like, is there specific costs that I know, like salaries and stuff? Is there specific costs for that
Mhm.
that would be allowed or not allowed? I'm thinking of like the construction and everything else.
Yes, exactly. So those renovation costs, um, so everything I mentioned, renovation costs, pet supplies, pet food, pet deposits, things like that. Vet care costs. You can all include all of that in your budget.
Yeah. So Jennifer, I wanted to ask because we have definitely had a couple of shelters do this recently. So you're expanding your number of rooms just in general. Are all of those rooms going to be pet-friendly rooms, or is there sort of like a certain number of those rooms that you've designated? These will be the rooms that are allowed to have pets in them.
Um, for the most part, all of them. It depends. We have a mixture of like individual rooms that are more communal living and ones that are more like small efficiency apartments that we try to put families in just to make it easier to watch little kids and stuff. We try to keep the pets in the depending on the type of pet. Obviously, a fish doesn't need to be kept behind a door. Um, in the more apartments, just so the pet's not crated constantly. Um, so yeah, we usually leave like one or two, a couple rooms that we try not to put pets in for people with allergies for the opposite effect, but we try to be as flexible as possible with it. Our main requirements is that the animal is vaccinated, you know, and that the people have control of it. And if it's out in public spaces or on the yard, it has to be on a leash, just to protection of everybody else. Um, so yeah, majority of these rooms will be pet friendly. And it's just, we're a domestic violence agency, so we take it on a as needed basis. We've had a relationship with our local humane society. They have helped us when we needed a little bit more housing in the past. I do know they're also overwhelmed right now. We're in rural communities of with there's several pet rescues, and they're all pleading for help at the moment too. So we're just I'm looking at, like, I know you guys mentioned like flooring, stuff like that. Is there anything, I know, like you said, the pet supplies, vaccinations and stuff like that, that's obviously, but I didn't know if like I could say, could include like, part of our security system or part of, you know, the doors or part of like the flooring, stuff like that. I'm just trying to expand and reduce the amount of the loan we're having to take on this.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
just
sure. Oh,
dropped
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Rachel. I just dropped a link, Jennifer, in the chat to an article called Pet Proofing Your Shelter. And that lists a lot of like sort of the common items that we recommend putting in pet-friendly client rooms. So there's a whole kind of list at the beginning of recommended floorings. We typically recommend going with a luxury vinyl tile or a luxury vinyl plank and upgrading from water resistant to an actual waterproof flooring. But there are other flooring options as well, epoxy tile, commercial vinyl, etc. We definitely don't recommend carpet for obvious reasons. But I definitely take a look at this. Some shelters choose to do some extra wall protection as well for pet-friendly rooms. A lot of times they'll do a fiberglass reinforced plastic or FRP wainscoting in the rooms, rather than going with a wooden trim, which can retain moisture. A lot of shelters will use a PVC or vinyl trim for their pet-friendly rooms. So all of the things kind of listed in this article are upgrades or updates that you may want to put in these bedrooms that are going to have pets in them. And if they are going to be pet-friendly rooms, right, this wouldn't be applicable. You couldn't expense the rooms that you're setting aside as non-pet friendly for folks that have allergies. But if these are going to be pet-friendly rooms, then generally speaking, you should be able to include some of these items to upgrade the rooms for pets in your grant application. Right, Rachel?
Yep. Yep.
Thank you. Just a quick note, if anybody else does take ferrets, I would recommend finding a way to lock down the floor vents in the rooms, because it's not fun having them scramble through the entire building in it. Just a quick note for part of the pet proofing.
Oh my gosh. Well, bless you, Jennifer, and your team for being so open to helping pets of all kinds.
Amazing.
I really hope the ferret was retrieved. That is That is, yes, great advice for folks planning to house. Yeah, good. I'm glad to see you nod. Planning to house some of our more slippery pet companions. It is something that we recommend keeping an eye on with cats as well, particularly if your shelter, if any of your rooms that you're planning to have pets in them have drop ceilings with, the ceiling tiles that can be easily pushed up. If you're housing cats in that room, you want to make sure that there's no furniture items in there tall enough that they can climb up onto and then push up the drop ceilings. Another tip learned from animal sheltering. So, yes, if anyone on the call would like to talk about how to pet proof your shelter in greater detail, we're always happy to have that conversation. All right, everyone. Does anyone have any other questions before we hop off for today? All right. Well, thank you all so very much for joining us. Again, we really are very excited to see your applications come in for safe housing funds. And thank you so much to Rachel for joining us today and for providing all of this valuable information. This is so helpful to folks. And so we're so happy to have you back again for our 2026 grant year.
Yay. Well, thank you, Danielle, for hosting and putting this together. And thank everyone again for attending. We can't wait to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day, everyone. And thank you again for your time. Bye-bye.
Bye.